All right. Thanks everyone for joining, and um, thanks for taking your time to be here with us this evening. Quickly, I'll introduce myself and also tell you a bit about the company. And after that, I have some slides to share. I'll share my slide later on, call on the facilitator that will take you on the journey, to shed more light into the journey itself, what it entails to become a web developer. And finally, we're going to take questions and answer at the end of the session. So that'll be the agenda for the day. 1 second, let me attend to. Let me attend 1 second, please. All right. That's fine. All right. So, without further ado, let's make a start. Am I recording? Yes, I'm recording. All right. So, my name is Akin Oladeji, and I happen to be the founder of Learn with Pride. And Learn with Pride is an IT training organization based in the UK, although we have students all around the world. So, what we do is we specialize in different IT trainings ranging from project management to business analysis, Scrum Master, product owner, data analysis, DevOps engineer, database administrator, and also web development. The reason why we are here tonight is because of web development. About the company has been going strong for the last 4 years, over 4 years now, and many students have, they've trained, as in they've passed through the academy. Over 20,000 students has passed through the academy from the start, which is almost like 5 years ago till date. Samsung, if you cannot hear me, you can log out and log back in. I did a sound check before I started, and everyone confirmed they can hear me. So Samsung, if you cannot hear me, log out and log back in. All right. So also, can we all mute our mic, please? Thanks. So over 20,000 has passed through the academy since we started over 4 years ago, and we are still going strong in terms of what we deliver or what we dish out to the community. We are different in the sense that we focus on the practical, we focus on what matters. Majority will come and they're still concerned about certification. I want to do this certification, I want to do that certification. And the world has moved beyond that now. It's not like the certification is not good, but it doesn't come first. What comes first is your knowledge, is your experience, is how you can demonstrate to the employer, that you can do the job. That is what comes first. Then after that, you can think about, oh, maybe I want to have certification in this aspect or in that aspect. But what the recruiters, what the employers are looking for is your knowledge, ability to hit the ground running. You know, that is what the employers are looking for. And that is what we concentrate on. So we don't preach certification, right? Instead, we focus on hands-on practical training. If you are to get a job tomorrow, how are you going to survive on that job? So we focus on the day in the life of a web developer, whether you are a front-end developer or you are a back-end developer. What is expected of you when you start working? What are the things you are supposed to know, before you start working? And that is what we concentrate on. And why the rush to IT sector? I think this happens, or this started since post-COVID. Majority wants to move to IT career because it gives them the flexibility and the opportunity as well to work remotely. And also, I think it is only in IT that you can work smart. Many people are working, they are getting good money, don't get me wrong. Take, for example, let's take a nurse, for example, they need to go to shift. They need to go and do their shift, whether it's a 7 to 7 shift or 8 to 8 shift, but they need to do that 12 hours, that long hours, right? It's not like they are not getting the money. They are getting the money, but they are working hard for their money. You know, that is why you see most of them now are now thinking about an alternative, you know, to move into IT. But when you work in IT, you are making the money as well, but you are working smart. You know, it is not a must for you to be on the system 9 to 5. You know, you can do your school runs, you can take your kids to school, you can take your car to the mechanic, and you still be working, right? You will still, again, if everyone can hear me loud and clear, please once again drop 1 on the chat. Please, if you can hear me loud and clear, drop 1 on the chat. All right, so those having issues with the volume, please check your device. It is not from me. So those having issues with the volume, please check your device, or you log out and log back in. All right. So yeah, so IT is the only sector that offers you, you know, a smarter way of working. You can take your car to the mechanic and you still be on your phone attending meetings. You are working. Not that you're not working, you are working, but you can do other things, you know. But you cannot be on shift. You can't go and do 12 to 12, 7 to 7 shift and take your car to the mechanic or take your kids to school. It is not possible, you know. So, and also aside that, since post-COVID, most organizations now realize that, you know what, we can actually achieve more when people work remotely. And most of these organizations, because they want to save money, they are now looking beyond their territory to look for qualified candidates to give the job to, you know, and that is where you come in. You know, you can be in Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and you can secure a remote job with a foreign company, and you'll be getting paid in foreign currency as well, you know, whether it's a freelance job, whether it's a permanent job. But if you acquire the right skills and knowledge, then you stand a chance of, you know, getting such roles, you know. Also, there are certain companies, let's say in the UK, that even from your home country, if you did well at the interview, they can apply for a sponsorship visa for you, even right from your home country. Those are the type of opportunities that can come your way, but they can only come your way if you know your onions, if you've acquired the right skills and knowledge. And that is where we come in. We are here, you know, to walk the walk with you. We are here to support you all the way. We are here to expose you to the things, to the important things that you need to know when it comes to this journey, when it comes to transitioning to become a web developer, whether a full stack, whether the front end, whether the back end, but you are on the right track, you know, and we are here to, you know, walk the walk with you all the way. So that is about the company. About myself, I transitioned as well. Uh, my background was in accounting. I've got masters in accounting as well, but I transitioned to become a software automation engineer. And, you know, that was what gave birth to the company called Learn with Pride today. So that is why I tell my students, you know, if I can do it, anybody can do it. The most important tool that you need on this journey is your determination. When you are determined enough, you know, your determination can move mountains. That is all that is needed. You know, there's nothing you cannot conquer when you have that determination. So that is why I know with our support, with your determination, we can both achieve, you know, the 100% to the extent, because the way we want to equip you is at the end of the program for you to be able to start competing with those who has been doing it in the industry for the last 2-3 years. You know, for that to happen, you need to get your hands dirty. Why getting your hands dirty? You might be stuck, yes, accepted, but you always have people at your corner to support you, to resolve those issues for you, and to be on the right track. All right, so that is about myself, about the company. I have a few slides quickly to share with you, and let's just continue. So why web developer? I just told you one of the reasons not long ago. But in the UK, I'm going to be using UK as a point of reference because that is where I live. But this doesn't matter. It applies anywhere, you know, wherever you live. It's still one of the highest paid job out there as well. So using UK as a point of reference, when you are considering a permanent role, the average salary is around 50,000. But when you're considering a contract role, probably it's a 2-month contract, 3-month contract, 4-month contract, then you are looking around £400 a day. You getting £400 a day, that is like £8,000 a month. You know, even if the contract is for 2-3 months, let's just say 3 months, that is still a lot of money. Majority don't even earn that per annum in the UK, because in the UK, the average salary for majority, like 60%, is between 18,000 and 35,000. That is what majority gets. And you, after completing a 4-month journey, you know, you were able to land yourself either a £40,000 role, £45,000 role, or even a £400 per day role. You know, that is a lot. But people are getting it. So why not you? Those getting it, they don't have 2 heads. You know, they went through the same process as well, and now they can testify that, you know what, it is doable. So that is why we know that you also, you know, you can do it. All right. Also, you can work remotely. I've made mention of this earlier on as well. You know, it gives you the flexibility, the opportunity to be able to work remotely, because now companies are willing to, you know, take people from outside their territory with the hope that they are short paying them. But even this, despite the fact that they think they are short paying you, when you convert that money, it is still a lot of money in local currency. So this is the right time to tap into that industry, because I know few people doing 2 jobs, 3 jobs together. So the jobs are out there. There's no question that the jobs are not out there. The jobs are out there. They're just looking for a skilled candidate, you know, to pick up those roles. And you can be one of them after, you know, after this training with us as well. And also is in high demand. Most software companies requires a developer, you know, so it is in very high demand, and the training will expose you to both the front end and the back end, and you can decide which one you want to specialize in, whether it's a full stack you want to go for, or you just want to be a front end developer, or you just want to be a back end developer. The choice is yours, but you'll be exposed to everything, you know. And yeah, let's move on. So if you are to come on board, how is the training going to be like? What is the schedule, as in what is the roadmap? Let's go through that quickly. So the training is going to be a 4-month practical training. And when I say practical training, it's going to be really intense practical training that will hold 3 times a week for 4 months, you know. Aside this, after the while you are on the practical journey as well, you'll be given projects in between. You know, at every checkpoint, you'll be given a project to undertake. So as you are learning, you know, you are working at the same time on a project to further enhance your learning. You know, that is what we provide, because we believe by getting your hands dirty, you are learning more. It is not about theories. That is why we don't focus on certification, because certification is all about you cramming something, theories to go and pass a certain exam. But this is, you are getting your hands dirty. You know, you are diving in deep. And as long as you are not afraid to make mistakes, because even the actual learning happens when you make that mistake and someone is there to correct that mistake. That is when the actual learning is actually taking place. So as you can see on your screen, we say certificates alone cannot get you the job. You need hands-on job practical experience to get the job as well. And that is what we represent. That is what you are going to be getting from us for anyone that enrolls on this journey. All right, so you've gone through the training, you've gone through the practical. Now you can actually call yourself, you know what? I think I can actually, you know, work as a front-end developer now. I think I can actually work as a back-end developer now. You know what? I think I'm actually good as a full stack developer. You know, you can boast of yourself because you've gone through the training, you've gone through the project, so you know what it entails to become a web developer. But you are not getting the calls. Nobody is calling you. No recruiter is reaching out to you. They are not reaching out to you because you cannot be seen in the market. You are not visible. And when you are not visible, nobody will contact you. That is why when it comes to optimization of your brand, it is as equally as important as the training itself and also the project itself. So I cannot overemphasize how important optimization of your brand is, especially for those that want to start applying for foreign jobs, international roles. You need to revamp your CV to international standard. Also, LinkedIn as well, you need to be in that space because LinkedIn has now become a popular marketplace that recruiters now go to scout for qualified candidates. So you have to be in that space as well. You need to optimize your LinkedIn page as well. And when these tools are done, you start uploading your CVs on different job sites, and not only uploading your CV, as you're uploading them, you are making them searchable because not all jobs are posted online. Sometimes the recruiters just go on those job sites, to scan through CVs on that job site. And if your CV is not searchable on those job sites, then you won't be seen. Then you won't be getting calls. So that is why it is very, 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 very important to optimize your brand so that you can stand a very good chance of securing a job at the end of the day. Because once you are getting the calls, you can be rest assured that interviews will follow. And from the interviews that are following, surely you'll land one of those interviews. The bad thing is you are not getting calls at all. But as long as you are getting the calls, you can be rest assured that the job will eventually be yours. All right, so you've done your optimization now, you start applying for jobs, and from there you start going for interviews. This is another key stage that we assist with as well, interview preparation. So because as I said, we are here to walk the walk with you. We are here to see you succeed. And that being said, when it comes to interview preparation, we are willing to do everything to prepare you for that interview so that you can go in with confidence and at the end of the day, you can bag that job. That is our aim. That will be our joy as well because your success at the end of the day is also our success. But why talking about interview preparation? Let me just go quickly or talk quickly about the benefits that you're going to get when you enroll on the full course with us. So you get the practical training, you get to work on the project, you get mentorship, you get interview preparation. Also, we give you a work reference for the duration that you're with us because you'll be working on a project. So surely when the time comes for you to use us as a reference, we'll be more than willing to give you a reference because you worked with us. So those are the benefits that you get when you enroll on the journey with us. All right. Quickly, let me share the stats of the company. So since 2020 till date, as I said earlier on, we've enrolled more than 20,000 students in all our courses now. This is the start of our courses from January this year till date, although this is not a full list because we've added a few other courses to this list as well. So this is from January till June this year. And you can see how many enrollments we've had in each of the courses that we offer. And finally, 85% of our students are currently working. 50% working in the public sector, while the 35% are working in the private sector, and 15% are job ready. They are still looking for job, but they are they are good to go. Another very important thing to note is whether you are looking for job or you recently got a job, like the boxers, you need people at your corner. You need people at your corner because you might be stuck with one thing or the other, and you need someone to help you resolve it. You need someone to help you have a look. That is why you need people at your corner. So we have an alumni group that comprises of people who are currently working and those who are still actively searching for job. That you can belong part of that group, because you learn a lot from that group. Also, they will become your backbone when the time comes, probably when you are in need of something to be done at work or you are stuck at work. It will be a very nice platform for you to go to and ask for help. That is another thing we do. Again, when you enroll with Learn with Pride, it is more than a student IT company relationship. We see you the moment you enroll, you become part of a family, to the extent that even after your journey with us, whether 6 months down the line or 8 months down the line, you are free to come back at any time. You are free to approach us at any time for anything, and we'll be more than happy as well to support in any way we can support, because we always see our student as a family, not as a student. If you understand. So quickly, let me go through the jobs that I go online today, sample jobs that I go online today as a web developer. This one is paying, again, I'm going to be using UK as a point of reference. This one is paying between 75,000 and 80,000. You'll be wondering that can someone who just went through a boot camp be fit or be qualified to apply for such roles? The answer is yes. Remember, I told you at the beginning as well that I transitioned. And when I transitioned, my very first role, I didn't even get the normal role like software automation engineer. The very first role I got, and I did the 3-month course as well back then. The very first role I got was a senior automation engineer that I have people under me. I was just laughing to myself, but that makes me challenge myself the more. That makes me want to learn the more, because I know there are people that depend on me to answer some questions and, do other things. So that really challenged me as well. So it is possible, yes, for you to get such money. You just have to be on your toes, all the time till you stabilize. The second one is a contract role, and this is paying £300 a day. So this contract role, how many months? It's a 6-month contract, as you can see. It's a 6-month contract, and most of the time they extend that contract. So you are getting £300 per day. In a month, that is like £6,000 a month. £6,000 a month times 6, that again, that is a lot of money, and you know, after that 6 months, they can renew the contract. And even if the contract is finished at the 6 month, you earn what some people will earn for the next 1.5 year. You've earned that in 6 months already. So that is the space, that is the type of space you can put yourself. Most of us, sometimes we are reluctant when it comes to investing in ourselves. We always procrastinate. I'll do it next year. Oh, my schedule for this year is too tight. Oh, I'm short of money. We procrastinate too much. And these same people, when emergencies come or when people approach them, probably family or friends, for money, oh, I need to do something, it's very important, they give this money out. They can give other people, they can borrow other people. But when it comes to investing in themselves, it is always hard. And these same people, they are the same type that will say, oh, someone won the lottery. They'll be wishing, oh, had it been I played that lottery, probably it could have been me that won that lottery. But the question is, you never played that lottery. And since you never play, you can never win. The same thing goes to career transition here as well. Many people will be wishing, and probably someone, a friend of them, took a decision 6 months ago, and now is working as a front-end developer, and they're now wishing, oh, I did the same training with Richard 6 months ago. Probably me too, I'll be in that position. Or most people will ask you, oh, what is the chances that if I embark on this journey, I'm going to get a job? That is another question you get most of the time. You will never know. It's like playing a lottery. Until you buy that ticket, play that lottery, and the vote is casted or whatever they do, and select the winner before you know whether you are a winner or not. But you can never stand a chance to win if you never buy that ticket. It's the same. The same thing goes to transitioning. You need to enroll. You need to know your onions. Go through the drilling. Go through the process. Know what you need to know, whether as a front-end developer, whether as a back-end developer. Know your onions. Then you can now, after knowing that, then you can now, be worried about, then the next stage, how do I get a job? But you've never done anything, you cannot imagine what will happen if you've never taken a step, you've never, taken that bold step to start the journey. It's all about taking the bold step, But anyway, don't let me talk too much. Can we mute our mic, please? Thanks. All right. I think I've said this. So what you get when you enroll on the journey, mentorship, UK work reference, interview preparation, and you get the support as well. All right. So the cost for the 4 months training is £999, £999. But for those that will be enrolling between now and the next 1 week, we are giving away 50% discount. So 50% discount will be applied, and after this discount is even applied, it is only half payment that is required to start on this journey. For anyone on this call and for anyone who has, you've done your due diligence, you've called different organizations to make inquiries, how much is, a web development training that comprises, a full stack is going for out there. I'm sure you know. So this is the bargain of the century. This is the bargain of the year. Getting 50% on the 9,999, and also you can as well start with half payment, and the other half will be due within 6 to 8 weeks. This is, you are investing £500 that after 4 months you can get a contract role, you can get a freelance role that will pay you probably £400 a day or $400 a day. So that means in 2 days you already equate back, or you already gotten back the money you invested to get trained for that. You already gotten back the money you invested into that process in 2 days. That is a position you can put yourself, So we are giving 50% discount for the next 1 week. That will be open. The training will be starting on the 30th of September. It will run 3 times a week. That will be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. UK time. So that will be 3 days a week, starting on the 30th of September. So as of now that I'm talking, we only have 9 slots left for the cohort that will be starting on the 30th of this month. So you make A when the sun still shines. If you want to partake, if you want to belong, if you want to unlearn so that you can relearn, if you want to change the story, if you want to change your career and embark on a different journey that will make life so easy for you, this is the opportunity that we are offering you. After this call, if you have any questions you want to ask me, or if you want to enroll, take opportunity of the 50%, the number on your screen will be the best number to contact me on. So whether you want to ask me for enrollment details, any questions at all, you can take a screenshot of the number on your screen, or you can save it on your phone. That will be the best number to reach me on after tonight's session. All right, so for now, I'm going to be pausing for now, and I'm going to be calling on Theophilus, who will be the facilitator that will take you on the journey if you are to enroll with us for the next cohort starting on the 30th of September to shed more light into the life of a web developer. Who are the type of people that can transition to become whether a front-end developer or a back-end developer, and what it entails. So it's going to talk more about that. So without further ado, I'm going to be pausing for now, and I'm going to be calling on Phil to take over the screen. Thanks. See you soon.
Hello. Hear me? I want to confirm if anybody hears me.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, great. All right. Before I introduce myself, I apologize. A heavy storm going on, so the internet is straight. I'm off, so you know. I believe
is breaking.
Okay.
It's breaking up though.
Okay, but the reason why it's raining, storming, so it's affecting the internet connection.
Oh wow. All right, let's see whether we can manage it.
Yeah, so I'll turn on. Yeah, I'll turn on my profile. It's on the network as well. But just after the introduction, I'll turn it off just so we have a freer flow. All right. So my name is Theophilus Aika, and I'm a full stack developer. Okay, and I want to thank Learn with Pride for this opportunity to be on this side of the conversation. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so like I mentioned, my name is Theophilus Aika. I would be your coach for this short period of 4 months that we're going to be having this conversation and trying to learn as much as we can. There's so much in web development. It's just a ton of things to learn in web development, but because of experience and the way I stand, guiding you through what to learn, okay, how we get from the bare bones beginning to becoming the professionals that we desire 4 months. Okay, so then I'm going to tell you this, that it's possible for you to become a professional, get the job you desire after the 4 months. But what I'm promise you is that it's work. Okay. Now there are 1 year, so but we're going to be compressing this to much that can be done within the short period, giving you the foundation to hit the ground running. And just like he mentioned, I would be there to mentor you. So even after classes, we could still continue the conversation. Okay, so we're going to be having a platform where we would collaborate, and with his permission, we'll be having a Slack channel. Okay, so it's going to go beyond. That's my point. That's what I'm trying to say. But you need to work, and I'll be helping you, inspiring you to do. All right, so let's see what we have now. This is web design to develop, okay, for lack of a concise name to give the entire program. We just came up with this web design and development. It contains the front end and the back end. So after this, you would have positioned yourself to becoming a full stack developer. Okay, just like I am. And I'm explaining more as we proceed. So the first phase that we'll be starting with in the program is the front end design. Okay, laying a solid foundation with HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. Okay, so that's the foundation. Now, this is a set of we're learning a lot of tech. that when you get familiar with the concepts, the terminologies, the fundamentals, then you can begin to build on that foundation, okay, at Desire. Now, I can promise you this, that we all are going to start at this level, bare bones, taking baby steps. But what I can't promise you that at the end of this journey, you all will be on the same level. It's not possible. Now, what's going to be different is your level of engagement, your level of input, okay, the time you spend learning and expanding on what we have laid as a foundation here. That's what's going to determine how far we go. Okay, so I'm going to promise you that foundation, but then just like he mentioned, we'll be here to mentor you through this process until you get your job. Even while you get your job, while you're struggling to fulfill or carry out tasks, your difficulties, you push it back to us, and then we'll look at ways to help you improve and move forward. Okay, so starting with the foundation, laying a solid foundation with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, would be touching some of these technologies. HTML5 in there. There have been many versions of HTML. Stopped at 4. Then another group XHTML. So what was the challenge? Then HTML could not get.
We can't hear you anymore.
What kind of
Yeah, I think we lost him. As I said, I think it's raining heavily where he is, which is affecting the internet connection. Let's just see whether he's able to connect back, and we can take it from there. But if you have any question pending the time before he comes back, probably you want to ask me, you can ask me any question. You can raise your hand and I'll call you to ask your question. All right, if no question, let's just wait for him to reconnect back. Hopefully it's going to be better this time around.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry for that break. I think I saw the disconnection. I believe it should be over soon because the storm is subsiding. Okay, so like I said, HTML being this foundation, I would get you to understand what it is and what you need to do to learn it. You don't need to memorize it. A lot of people think those bunch of jargons requires you to memorize all of those jargons. You don't have to. Okay, I'm telling you this from experience. Now I'm going to be walking you through the different steps, the elements you need to know part time, and then you keep building it like blocks. And then before you know, you look behind and see that you've built a skyscraper. Okay, so HTML 4.01 stopped at a point, and then some other group took up the project and included XML to HTML to help with structuring content within the web page. And then they started with XHTML. Okay, they had different versions of XHTML, and then the HTML, the Warthog group, went back to the drawing board, and then they did something far better. So they released it as HTML5, and that's what we're using today. So for the past few years, and then for the foreseeable future, this is what is going to be there until something springs up. So HTML5 is what I'm going to be introducing you to, and then we'll be using CSS3. Okay, including JavaScript. So HTML handles the structure of the web page, like the structure of content within the web page. Then CSS is what presents that content in a way that's appealing to the user or the visitor to your website. Then the interactivity that comes with clicking a link and then something pops up, you enter an input, and then there is a redirect, and then there's something that happens, new information arrives, and all of that. All those interactivity are powered by JavaScript. So they are all knit together, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's why we're starting it as the foundation. Now, once you understand this, it will be easy to build on it. Okay, so we'll be touching other technologies like SVG. Okay, so now you don't have to always put heavy graphics on your web page. Now, if you convert it to a scalable vector graphic, then it makes your site lighter. Okay, so down the road, I'll be showing you how to use Google to test the speed of your website, the best practices, if the website follows best practices, and some of the things that would be required by Google as a test to rank your website using search engine optimization. Okay, so those practices will be what we'll be looking through all this. Then we have Tailwind CSS, awesome framework. Okay, built on CSS. So we'll be looking at that, and then we'll be looking at Google font. You don't have to be using the default fonts for browsers. You can use great fonts, appealing rendering on your web pages using all kinds of fonts, especially Google fonts. Okay, but then now, because we are not having this full-fledged, like I said, it's a lot to take in web development. We're going to be using libraries, frameworks, okay, that would help us jumpstart certain things that we need to do on our website. And one of it is graphics. Okay, so if we're going to take a full graphics course, then perhaps we would have introduced Photoshop, okay, or Adobe InDesign, okay, Lightroom, and so on, even CorelDRAW, but that's a lot. So now we're going to be using Canva to help with basic graphics on our website. And then now when you understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you now come to a point where you don't always have to build from the scratch when you get a project. Because you have understood these languages, you can now use other frameworks to scaffold your web pages and get you up to speed, like Bootstrap. Okay, so we'll touch on Bootstrap and see how to use Bootstrap, the latest version, and all of that. And then very importantly, we'll be using Visual Studio Code. Okay, this will be our text editor for this course. There are many of them there. Trust me, if you're comfortable with using any other one, they do the same thing. But I'm just going to tailor you along this line because a large percentage of the web developer communities across the globe use Visual Studio Code. So we're using what you would get familiar with, so that when you join a team, while you're looking for a job, you get a job and you join a team, you'll be out of sync. Okay, you'd be familiar with some of the environments they're using. And then we'll be talking also about the browsers and why you need to care about these browsers. Very important for you. So don't just get, oh yeah, I like Firefox. I don't like any other browser. As a web developer, those preferences are out the window. Okay, so you need to now put yourself in the shoes of the visitors or the people who are coming to visit your website, and what browser would they be using? Now, survey shows that Google Chrome is the highest used so far at 80-something% of all the browsers. So you can mention they've taken a whole chunk of the market. So there is no way would develop without testing on the Google Chrome, for instance. Okay, so now let's get this started. Please, am I still audible? Can you still hear me so that I can get that confirmation? Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, so here's the course outline for the first section. So we're going to be having the front end and then the back end. Okay, so we're starting with the front end. Now for the front end, these are the modules. So we'll be having, we'll be taking a head first dive into the introduction of web development. Okay, so when we get started, we'll look at the overview of web technologies. Okay, so you understand frameworks, okay, platforms, and then by such, you'd be able to leverage on what's available to get jobs done. Okay, so we would explore the general web technologies. Okay, and then we'll look at client-server, client-side and server-side scripting. As a front-end developer, you're going to be doing more of client-side, so we need to understand that. Okay, and then as a back-end developer, you'd be on the server side. So, but if you're full stack, it means you're doing both. Okay, so Mr. Akin was showing you salary ranges for web developers, and you can see that oftentimes it's like from £18,000 to 80 to 100 and so on. Now, it's not even really about it's not really about how old you are. Really, it's not like civil service where they look at when you came in and all of that. It's your experience that separates you. So some are just front-end developers, and that's their limit. They stay there. They're good at that, okay? But they receive lower pay. And others are server-side or back-end developers. And they get a little bit higher pay than the client-side or the front-end developers, right? But then if you understand both and you put them together as a full stack, you're on top of the food chain. Okay, so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of things to learn. But if you program yourself and you give yourself those targets that, look, in 1 year, I'm going to be a full stack and function in any environment, trust me, you can get it done. Now, I had I can't really call him a friend because we don't talk that much, but an acquaintance that I met in Lagos once. The guy's name is Seth, S-E-T-H. And he's just pulling so much strings in web development. And I was curious one day, and then I asked him, I was like, "Oh, you must have taken you a long time to develop. I mean, like develop these skills and get to where you are." And he said no, that it was just a period of 3 years. And what shocked me was that he didn't even have a foundation in computer science. He read biochemistry, totally unrelated. But he's a reference point. Like I give it to him anytime I get the opportunity to meet him. This tells you that your background is of no consequence. It has no relationship with what you become coming into this field. All you need is just a determination to learn and then a desperation to get it done. A lot of people take their time. They give you 1 hour a day. Sometimes they even skip days, and they look at it when they are free. No, you can't. Even as a computer science or a software engineer, as it were, you lose steam. So this requires constant and deliberate attempts to keep learning. Okay, just keep learning. And that has been my story, really. Okay, I won't want to bore you with all that. When we get to the classroom, we'll hear more. Okay, so I'm going to be telling you experiences. Okay, that's why you're going to learn from my own experience and the experience of others on getting into this field and what to do, what to avoid, okay, at certain levels. All right. So with establishing the fact that the front-end developers, they rely heavily on the client side, and then the backend rely heavily on the server side. Okay, so what this means is that all the scripts you write, they run on the browser, so it's client side. Now, when your scripts run on the server, it can be any server. It could be an Apache server. It could be Nginx. Whatever you write that runs on the server makes it a backend. Okay, that makes you also a backend developer. All right. So we'll look at all this and then put it into perspective. Introduction to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is what we're going to be starting with. And then we'll move on to HTML5, the fundamentals of it. Okay, what is the document structure? If you understand the framework, the architecture of how HTML5 is built, it will give you a good footing to learn what elements are and the tags. Okay, so if I need to write a paragraph on a page, that paragraph is an element. Everything is uniquely identified. The paragraph is an element. So, but how do I represent that paragraph on the web page? I use tags. Okay, so the element is the name of the component you want to use. The method for rendering that component is what you use with tags. And then working with text, links, images, tables, and then semantics. Okay, now here's it. I learned web design when it was more of a table-based structure. You create a table and then you set off which part is the head section, which part is the sidebar, the main content, the navigation, all of it's just so messy. So everything is just scaffolded with tables. But now you don't have to do that. Okay. Now, with the recent elements that are churned out from HTML5, makes it very easy to structure content on your web page. So we'll be looking at how to do that with some of these elements. Semantics now requires us to just use elements for exactly what it's meant for. So table was heavily abused. Table was supposed to just display a list of items in rows and columns, but now it was used for something else. It was heavily abused. But now with semantics, if I say this is a header tag, then it's used for header. I can't use it for footer. If it's for footer, I use for footer. So it makes you even remember some of these elements very easily. So understanding browser viewpoint, that's another important thing we're going to be looking at. How do you write a script, just one script, that can render on a desktop or laptop, and then the same script adjusts itself to render on tablet and then also on a mobile phone? Before now, you have to write different scripts for targeting different devices. But with the browser viewport, you don't have to do that. You just write one script and then it renders differently on different devices. Okay, we'll be looking at that as well. And then how do you include audio and video on your web page? These things were tall tasks in those days, but now it's easy thanks to HTML5. So we'll move on to cascading style sheet. what is cascading style sheet? Now, this is it has nothing to do with content. It worries itself with how content is displayed on your browser. That's its whole task or assignment. How is content? So you go to a website and you say, oh, this website looks great. Although the colors are just on point. Yeah, thanks to CSS, not HTML. Okay, so I'll be drawing the lines between visual display and content within the web page using the HTML5 and CSS3. So you learn all the techniques on how to style content. You become an artist, okay, using CSS3. And then we'll look at the CSS selectors and properties. Those are the engine room for displaying things on your web page. And then applying styles to HTML elements. How do you pick on any particular style and say, I want all my paragraphs to have this kind of layout? Okay, then the box model. The box model helps us to learn things like margins and paddings. Okay, and then how do they help us also structure content within the web page? Typography, very important. Typography has to do with text. And then how do you style text on your web page? Okay, the CSS transitions and animations, all those fancy animations you see, some of them are powered by JavaScript, but some also are powered by CSS. So CSS it's robust. It's huge. So we're going to be going through all those. Now, while we're doing this, we could just go straight up and learn WordPress, okay? Content management system already built. We're just changing content and layouts and get the job done. But I've seen over time that when you learn from the scratch, when you have to fold your sleeves, you are in control. You're more in control. And I tell you what, when you get jobs, these are things that they test you with. How familiar are you with code? Okay, so if you're able to show your proficiency with code, it puts you at a better chance of getting jobs. So we're going to be doing this from scratch. Okay, I'll be demonstrating to you shortly some of these. Okay, so it's not just talk. So you'd see for yourself how these bare bones web pages are created. Okay, and then we'll get to a very important concept in that's in CSS3, which is called a flexbox and the grids. Awesome. It's just a beautiful inclusion in CSS3 that makes work a lot better for us, okay, as developers. I'll be looking at that. All right. Then in module 4, we'll delve into JavaScript essentials. Now, let me tell you this. This is the point where we will take our first dive into programming. Okay, let that not scare you. Okay, we're going to be taking baby steps with programming. We'll be learning programming concepts. Okay, it's important you learn the concepts first before you start going for the practice. Okay, so we'll be looking at JavaScript as one of the main client-side scripting language, and then looking at variables. What are variables? If you have repeating calls within your web page, better you store it in a variable. So we'll look at that programming concept called variables, and then data types. Now, when you have variables, if you're storing values in variables, it's important for you to define their types. Some are integers, others are strings, some are arrays, okay, and so on, so that you can get the most from JavaScript. All right, and then we have operators like multiplication, addition, equal, and so on. So those are operators. All these jargons would be explained and you would be familiar with them. Trust me, you will, okay, because I've seen it over time. And then we'll look at control structures. A lot of what you see, let me tell you this, when you go to websites, you could have 3 people in the same location visiting a particular website, and you come back like a minute or 2 and look at their screens. They may be on the same page, but the screen is displaying different contents to them. Okay, so depending on their input, and some are repetitive. So we now have scripts to help repeat those contents in different ways on the web page. So instead of repeating yourself in the code, you just have a loop that loops through content that is shipped from an API, and then you can display it. Let's say you're looking at countries in Africa, for instance, and then you say, okay, we have, let's say 54 countries. Okay. Now imagine writing them one by one from A to Z. You just have a pool somewhere that has a list of countries. And then once you fetch the API, you just have a loop that loops through them and display them on the page. Programming doesn't go beyond that, really. Those are the baby steps for programming. And then when you start building on that, you would get better at it. Then we look at functions, very important. Functions and scopes. Sometimes, it's in JavaScript that you start having errors, and then you start debugging. Okay, we'll start looking at things like that. So oftentimes you define a variable, and that variable, it tells you that it's undefined, or it can't see it. It can't use that value because it's not available. And you're saying, yeah, you have it there already. But if you don't understand scope, you may have that kind of problem. So there are places within your code where certain variables are visible and other parts are not visible. So if you understand that, it puts you more in charge. And then DOM, document object model. We'll learn how to manipulate that. Okay, so when we go through our HTML, every element within the HTML has an identifier. Okay, that's why I keep saying that it's unique. Okay, so if I have paragraph, then P tags would help with the paragraph. Headings will be H1 to H6 and so on. So now how do we target each of them to say, okay, for instance, when I click a link, which is an A tag or an anchor tag, if I click a link, grab that and then make it an event and do something else. Okay, so that is where the DOM manipulation comes in. This is the point where we're going to learn a lot about JavaScript, the DOM manipulation. So once we're comfortable with that, then we can now start scaling it up to events and event handling, asynchronous programming, and so on. Okay, so we'll move on to advanced HTML and CSS. So this is where you're beginning to get better at HTML. So we'll start introducing some advanced techniques. Okay, so look at semantic elements. I've mentioned some of them before, and then we'll now focus on how to make sites responsive. So when you remember I talked about browser viewport. So now we can now start targeting devices to make our content display properly on those devices using what is called responsive design. Okay, and then because of that responsive design, we'll now take a peep into media queries. Okay, don't worry about it right now. It's something simple. We'll get some predefined widths of different devices and then use that to target those devices. Okay, and now CSS, especially CSS3, has gotten to the point where it's also imbibing some of the programming culture. Okay, so it's not just procedural anymore. It's just using concepts from object-oriented programming. And that is where we'll be talking about CSS preprocessors like Sass, Less. Okay, so we'll now write CSS code like we're programming, and then we'll have functions and things like that. And then the preprocessor renders it in the regular HTML. I mean, rather regular CSS syntax. Okay, and then we'll delve into frameworks. Bootstrap, for instance, we'll not be talking about Foundation, but just to mention, then we would be relying heavily on Tailwind CSS. I tell you the truth, that's what's trending right now. Tailwind CSS is just competing heavily with Bootstrap, and I've checked to see a lot of websites now are transitioning to using Tailwind CSS. Okay, so what makes it thick is the fact that now in Bootstrap, you have predefined classes. You have predefined. So if I want to use a button on my web page, I go to Bootstrap, Bootstrap has a button class. So I call the class, and then it just displays the structure of that button. And then I have to do a lot of work to tweak it the way I want. But Tailwind CSS says, no, look, we put you in charge. You're in the driver's seat. Determine what you want. So you don't have classes, as it were. You just have those strings that you'd add to the elements to give you exactly what you want. And I know it sounds abstract right now because I can't show you much, but just to mention that, look, we're going to be working a lot with Tailwind CSS. And then intermediate JavaScript. Now that you are familiar with some basics in JavaScript, we'll go a step further, and then we'll look at objects and arrays, and then working with JSON. And JSON, it's usually the content that is that's advised when you're working with APIs. Okay, so how do you provide this kind of content, or how do you consume those APIs using this kind of content? Okay, and then we'll look at the versions of ES. Okay, that's for JavaScript, and with that, we'll start seeing how to use arrow functions. Okay, as against the regular functions that we used to have, and then all through. Okay, so what I'm trying to put across to you is that we're going to be taking deeper dives into some of these concepts. Okay, so for front-end developers, this is what you need to know. So we're going to be hovering around all these concepts. So here, with the permission of Mr. Akin, because I don't have a lot of time, we're going to be sending you this course outline. So it's going to be like 2 documents, one for front end and then the other for back end. Then you can also use it as a checklist to see, okay, what are we doing? And then just to give you a heads up with what's coming in the program. Okay, so I'll just brisk through this very quickly so that I can show you some environments and before we go. So then we'll go into the introduction to web development tools. Okay, so now we're rounding off with front-end development, right? So now we would prepare ourselves for the backend. So we need to get familiar with version control. And then version control is good for you as an individual developer, but is best for teams. Okay, so if you're working on a project and you're about 5 on a team, so instead of having separate copies on your computers, and then how do you bring them together to create the entire program? It becomes difficult. So, but with version control like Git, you can push updates, okay, and then you have different versions. If something fails, you can revert to a previous version and then continue work. And then collaborate online with your team using GitHub, for instance. So while we're developing, it's important for us to also know how to use Chrome developer tools and then Firefox developer tools, and other browsers have theirs too, where we'll go behind the scene to see what's happening, how our requests and responses are handled. Okay, and then the head section, what's happening. And then oftentimes we don't see JavaScript errors on the browser. It's best seen in the developer tools. Okay, and then we'll talk about package managers, start having to use NPM, which is the Node package manager, and Yarn. Yarn was created by Facebook, and it does a good job as NPM. NPM came before it though, but we'll be looking at how to use this, especially when we are using React, Next, and Laravel. So this becomes very important, NPM. Okay, so we'll be using that to pull in our dependencies and so on. So while we're doing that, we could now look at building and automating tools like Vite, Webpack. The reason why I didn't mention Webpack is because we're not going to be using it, but just to know that Webpack is there. This helps you to bundle your scripts and then render it in the way that the browser or the server would use. Okay, to like collectively put in all your scripts in one file and then making it minified, lightweight, so that it's rendered very fast. All right, so we're rounding off on front end. So we have the web development best practices. These are things you need to know. Cross-browser compatibility. Okay, how do you create a website that renders on all browsers? Okay, I used to have that problem. Something will look great on Chrome and on Internet Explorer, then before Edge came out, would have big issues, and then you have to look at how to create hacks to solve those problems. But now, cross-browser compatibility it's relatively easier. And then we'll look at web accessibility. Okay, like I told you, there are systems, there are bots that are checking on you to find out if you're following these guidelines. How accessible is your website? Can a blind man come to your website and get content and be satisfied using your website? He's not seeing anything. So what are the techniques? What are the things you need to do? We'll be looking at all that. And then the performance optimization techniques. You need your website to be as light as possible so that people don't have to wait up to 5-8 seconds for a page to load. Okay, and then code commenting, especially when you're working with teams. It's not just teams, it's good for you because by the time you come back 5 years after to look at your code, you have to look around like, what did I do here? You know, but your code comments would help you to describe sections within your web page. And of course, development tools, we'll be looking at React. Okay, this is the first time that we'll be looking at React. Then how do we create components in React, state management, routing, like how do you move from one page to another. And then this whole thing is called a single page application. The page loads once, and then it doesn't need to reload again. Okay, so all this content are moved around on the same page. Okay, that's like the basic explanation of that, but there's a more technical way to explain that, and we'll be getting to that. And then we'll be introducing Next.js as the official framework for React. Now, this is a recent development where React now, created by Facebook here, now recognizes Next.js as their own framework. Okay, so that's why we're going to be learning it. And I tell you what, there are many organizations that are using this, including Netflix, Facebook, Instagram, okay, and so on. The list is a long one. All right, so like Mr. Akin said, we'll be having a hands-on experience while doing this. You know, I've talked a lot here. Some of you are bored with this already, but it's not going to always be like this. It's going to be hands-on. Just because we have a short time, I just have to mention some of these. And then when we get down to the real deal, we'll start expunging them one by one. So here are some projects we'll be attempting. A personal portfolio website. Now you're going to be creating that. Now we are asking you to do that, just like a portfolio, a personal portfolio, and you can put on your CV so people can check you up and see what you do. Okay, the projects that you've delivered and so on. Simple stuff. And then we'll be looking at to style blog layouts. Okay, we'll create a simple blog and then you learn from there. Interactive to-do list, very common project. Okay, it's just like when you're coming into programming here, things like lorem ipsum, you say, what kind of gibberish is this? Okay, it's just something that thrives in the developer community. Okay, so one of the very common projects is the to-do list. Okay, this helps us to carry out what's called a CRUD, create, read, update, and delete. Okay, so when we can understand all these interactions, then we can say we have a rounded experience or in that basic concept of delivering something as a project. Okay, and then we'll test ourselves with responsive landing pages. Okay, like I create a web page, check it out on a tablet, check it on a phone, and then on large screens and see how it does. Okay, so those are ways that we'll test ourselves. And then we'll create a weather app with this, we're going to be tapping into an API. So this will help you to get grounded more in JavaScript, especially using React and Next.js. Then, of course, we'll create interactive web applications. The heavy one is coming when we are done with the web development part, which is the backend. Okay. So very quickly, let me just break you through this. What is web design? Web design is just a process of planning, conceptualizing, and implementing the plan for designing a website. Okay, in a way that is functional and offers a good user experience. These are just fancy words for describing exactly what you do, from ideation, that's just coming up with the ideas, to delivering a product as a web designer, right? So please note that I'm going to be using these terminologies to describe a front-end developer. So say you're a web designer, okay, this is not industry standard now, but we're just going to be using it in this class just to help us understand. When you say a web designer, oftentimes you're a front-end developer, right? But of course, it still has some components that are reused in the backend. Then, what is the web? We've been hearing about the web for so long. What's WWW? It's the World Wide Web. And it's just a system that is used to access the internet. The internet is a global network of other networks. Okay, there are chunks of different networks. You have the LAN, the WAN, the MAN, and so on. There are quite a lot of them, Ethernet. And then internet brings all of them together. But part of it is the web. Okay, it's just a way of accessing information. And oftentimes it's done through the browser. Oftentimes, okay, there are other avenues. And then what's required for web design? You just need a computer with basic specs, as basic as 4 gig RAM, okay, and then 2 point something gigahertz of processor. It's fine to just start as a web designer. But when you scale up to becoming full stack, and also maybe also touch DevOps, then you need more powerful machines. Okay, so the web authoring tool we're going to be using, that's a term for it. There's a text editor, it's Visual Studio Code. Okay, there are many more, like Atom, PHP Storm, Bracket, and so on, quite a lot of them. And then the browsers that we're going to be using or focusing on are just these 5. There are many browsers out there, but ideally you should know how to test on these browsers, 5 of them, with Google Chrome being the top, then followed by Firefox. Internet Explorer is now Edge, and I think it's doing better than Firefox right now, but acceptance has not grown to that point yet because of the previous disappointment, but it's really good right now. And then what's the requirement? You just need basic computing skills, like using the keyboard and the mouse, your ability to launch applications, navigate around the computer. That's just all. Okay, you don't need to be a computer science student or graduate. Okay, now here are some of the benefits. Okay, he has talked about some of them before, so I'm not going to talk too much about that anymore. But it just makes you versatile. How do I mean? I'm talking specifically from experience. When I started as a web designer, I thought it was just going to be limited to HTML, CSS, and maybe sprinkling JavaScript. That's what I thought. But it pushed me to learn graphics design. Now I know how to use Photoshop very well. Not because I'm a graphics designer as a web, but because web pushed me to learn it. And now I've learned database management system for my use. And now when I isolate that skill, I can still use it in another context. Okay, networking, yeah, you need to understand networks, okay, so that you assign IP addresses to a server-client relationship in an environment where you need to deploy locally. Okay, so these are just few of the many, very many benefits, okay, of web design. Okay, and some of them off the chart is the fact that You need short education time. You don't need to learn it for too long. Okay, you don't need 2 years to learn it. The salaries are good. All right, it makes you highly creative. It brings you to that creative industry where you have to imagine things and bring it out to fruition. And then the ability to work in various work environments, various work, you don't have any geographical limitations. Then you can also work as a freelancer. Okay, I've been a freelancer for a long time, so it pays really. And then it creates a platform for you to reach a global audience, helps you with career growth, okay, opportunity for innovation and invention, okay. You have the chance to learn transferable skills, right? The good thing again is, you see, for beginners, can earn up to £18,000. Then it helps you also to build an attractive portfolio, especially like Mr. Akin mentioned. This helps you, by the time we delve into this helps you to understand what's happening behind the scene when someone types in the URL in the browser. Okay, URL is Uniform Resource Locator, or what you call web address. Okay, so now as a professional, you don't call it that way anymore. The novice, they can use any term, but for you as a developer, you start using the right terms. So you say, give me the URL. What's the URL? So once you type in the URL in the web browser address bar, and you hit enter or you click go, what happens between that point and when the page loads? It's a lot that happens behind the scene, and we're going to be dissecting them, okay, as we go on. Then HTML is what I said we're going to be looking at. I hope I'm still on.
Yes.
Okay. I'm rounding off on this now so that I can just show you the hands-on. I know it's my time is fast spent. Okay, so what is HTML? I've mentioned HTML5. What really is it? It's short for Hypertext Markup Language. Like you see, it's a language. Now, when you are learning a new language, you start with learning the nouns, the verbs, the preposition, and then you start bringing it together to create a sentence, from sentence, paragraph, and then you can use it in a conversation. So that's how we're going to be approaching this. We'll be learning those verbs, those nouns, terminologies, okay? And then we'll get used to those technical jargons and then know what they do, so that when we need to accomplish a task, we'll know what elements to use. So it's a markup language, okay? And then the markup actually is a set of symbols. Like you see in this graphic at the bottom right corner, you see HTML there wrapped around with what you call less than and greater than symbols, okay? But they're called left and the right brackets. So the head tag, all these are called tags. Then they have title, the style, and so on. These are called symbols. Okay, they're just a bunch of symbols that you put together, and then the browser now interprets those symbols and gives the user what they see. So that's why you can view the source code of any web page. Okay, that's the front end, just the front end, because you may not be able to see the back end. But once you right click and view source on the browser, or use Control U while you're browsing a page, it shows you the bunch of code, the jargons, all those as the symbols. Overwhelming as it is, we're going to be taking those baby steps to understand everything there, so that by the time you build your own web page, you can view the source and feel like, oh, I wrote all this. Okay, so it comes in little chunks. Now, so what are these symbols? So this is an example of the symbols. Okay, so you have the body here, you have the P for the paragraph tag, and then you have attributes, like this style line is an attribute. The margin, 0 pixels, all those are values for the attributes. And then we'll be understanding what all these things represent. Right now, it doesn't make sense. Okay, don't even try to rack your brains. It will make sense right now. Okay, so my job is to get you to understand this. And then the elements, like I mentioned earlier, whatever you want to do, okay, I want to display an image on the web page, a photograph on the web page. What do I use? I use the image element. So the image element is represented by the image tag, IMG. Look at this, the second line in this code, IMG. And then when you tell the browser that this is an IMG, it means that it's an image. Now the browser is going to ask, where am I getting this image from? So SRC is the source of the image. And then you put the path to that image on the server. Once you get the path right, it picks up the image. And then just like I mentioned about web accessibility, best practices and all of this is optional for the most part, but as a professional, you need to add alternate text to your images so that it becomes accessible. How do I mean? If a blind man comes to a web page, he's not going to see those images. It is the description you put in your alternate text that the screen reader that he has installed on his machine reads out, so he understands what that image is about. Okay, so these are the different bunch of jargons that would eventually make you a star, okay, down the road. But of course, we're going to be looking at this from the foundation, and then the tags and so on. All right, so right now I'm just going to break and I'll show you a bit of code before we run. So sorry for the time. I am always thinking that we're in class. Okay, so let me share this part of the screen. Just a moment. Okay. Can I get feedback if you're seeing my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can. We can.
Okay, great. Okay, so now this is a text editor, and preferably we're using the Visual Studio Code. Now I'm not going to be talking about it right now. Let me just go straight to the part. You've been listening a lot. So I just have a basic page that I just put up now. It's just called HTML. All right, so you can put it anywhere. It can be on the desktop, documents. If you're using Mac, it can be anywhere you want, right? But advisably, it's good to put your web project away from easy access, like the desktop. Okay, so I have mine in the local disk C and tucked away somewhere, and then just locate this and you'd be able to use it. So I've been able to pull this into the text editor, in this case, Visual Studio Code. And then this is the content bearing assets. Okay, so this is not this is just convention. It's not a written rule. Okay, people have different approaches to doing this. So I have assets. Okay, it's just a way to say any content that you're going to use on the web page that is external to the current page that you are currently using it in should be put in an assets folder. And the three very common directories or folders that are in the assets directory are the CSS, IMG, and GS. I hope this is large enough. Let me just zoom in. Okay, so we have assets. Inside assets, you have CSS. This is where all your styles will be, cascading style sheet. And then if you have images, they'll be here. I have one already. It's called coding. And if I click on it, it should display here. You'd see the image. Okay, and then we also have GS for JavaScript files. Okay, so this is a way of organizing your content into directories. It makes it easy to manage. Okay, so right now, I'll create a basic web page, and I would use this icon here to create a new file, or I would go to the menu and click File, New File. All right, so I'll click on this, and then I would name this index.html. And you'll be thinking, okay, maybe I just thought about this off my head and feel like I could just give this any name, which is fine. But for the first page or your landing page within a project, it should be named index. You'd see how we'd name these differently as we progress. But for right now, saying that it's .html with that extension means that this is a HTML file. So the browser knows what to do when it encounters content on this page. So index is the first file, so that if I'm going to learnwithpride.co.uk, I don't have to put /index. It will automatically pick the index because the servers have been configured to identify that file as your entry file. All right, so now that I have this, I'm just going to collapse this so that I have more room to view the content. And good thing with Visual Studio Code is I don't have to type every single element on the page. I could scaffold my basic structure of the web page using code snippets. And some of them are already pre-programmed. So we'll be looking at some of these and how to even add yours to it. So I'm just going to type HTML5, and you see it's already highlighted. So when I hit enter, notice what it has done for me. Just going to zoom out a little bit. Look at this. So this is the entire structure of any web page. I could type this out myself, but it will take a longer time. So by just using that code snippet, I'm able to scaffold this on the web page. And this is very important. This first line here tells the browser. Remember, all these jargons is for a browser. It's not meant for humans to read. It's the browser that interprets it. So that's why oftentimes they call this a scripting language. It's not a programming language, as it were. It's a scripting language. So you write scripts, and then the platform interprets it. In this case, our own client now is the browser. So the browser looks at this line and says, oh, this is a tag or a document type definition for HTML5. So it expects content following from line 2 downwards to be HTML5. Okay, so there is a longer DTD. It's called document type definition. There's a longer one for XHTML, for instance. Okay, so if I write XHTML, I have to define whether it's strict, transitional, frame set, and all of that. So it could even take 2 lines. But like I told you, conventionally, we're using HTML5. So just this line tells that story already. And then every web page should be wrapped around with HTML tags. Now, you hear me say tags. This is what it means. Okay. The left angled bracket, the name of the tag, and optionally, the attributes and value that tells the browser how to modify this tag. So if I don't put this, it's going to use the default. And oftentimes the default is English, but it's good to specify it. EN is English. And then we have the head section. Very importantly, the head section is what contains metadata about your website, information about your website, particularly, for instance, for Google search. When you search for a web application and you find it on Google, most times the information Google got before it referred people to that site came from the head section. Okay, because of time, I may not delve too much into that. Then what your browser or what your users see on the browser are often contained within the body. Okay, so within the body, we can now have all kinds of elements. For instance, I can have a div tag. This div tag is a divisional element. Creates divisions on your web page components like sidebar, navigation, or I'm just saying, okay, different sections within the web page can now be, let me just take a peep real quick to, okay, let me borrow this, for instance. Let me borrow this to this Bluehost hosting company. Okay, so now look at this card down here. This card is where you log in. See how distinct it is. This is a division on your web page. Okay, if I put something else here, for instance, the logo up to the navigation here is another section. Okay, that's another division. Okay, so that's what I mean by creating divisions. So I can create a division like that, and then say also, for instance, I create 2 more divisions. And my intention is that I want to put an image here, and then I'll put a header or a heading on the web page, and then some maybe a paragraph or 2. Okay, just to keep it simple. All right, so how do I pull in my image, for instance? I use the IMG tag. IMG. Now, I'm familiar with this, not because I memorized it, but when you keep using these over and again, it becomes second nature. It becomes part of you. So that's why I said I don't advise people memorizing. Okay, so we're going to be walking you baby steps. Like, you may forget, fine. And then you go back, you look at it again. The time you look at it 2-3 times, it sticks. Okay, so I use the IMG. Now you can see that I don't have to start with the left-angled bracket, because this browser helps me to quickly auto-complete code. So when I hit this, it now gives me what it's expecting for this image. So what's the path to the image? Now let's look at this. So in the assets, I'll go to IMG, which is the image folder. Okay, it can be images, it can be IMG. Okay, servers would cache this file to quickly load your images. Okay, so but if you decide to name it something else like photos, then it will take a longer time to cache, or you just configure your server to identify that as your image directory. So in my images folder, I have coding.jpg. JPG is the extension for that image. Okay, and the allowed extension are JPEG, JPG, PNG, GIF. TIFF is not recommended for web. So we'll be looking at all that so that you don't just grab any image and just dump on your web page. Okay, so now I want to pull in this image. Then I need to reference this image. Now look at this very quickly. This is where I'm referencing the image from. This is the file I'm dealing with, index, right? Now in the structure here, I need to go into this folder, assets, drill down to IMG, and then pick this image. So what I need to write here is go into the assets folder, and then you can see it's helping me out because it knows I'm on track. Okay, so into the IMG directory, and then pick that file called coding.jpg. So by just doing this, I can go to this web page. Let me just load it up for now. Just very quickly, load it up.
You can't see the web page though.
Yeah, it's coming up.
No,
so you can see.
You can only see the Visual Studio code page. That's the only.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the only one you're sharing.
Oh, okay. I beg your pardon. All right. So let me share. Can I share looking for the option to share the entire
just
screen.
click on share.
Okay. All right. So can you see the web page now?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So you can see this image has been pulled in because the path is correct, but the image is extremely large. That's where CSS comes in. All right. So very quickly, I have that image, and over here I'll need a heading 1 element. Okay, we'll be talking about that much later. Heading 1, I'll just say simple heading. Okay. And then below that, I'll just have a paragraph with some basic content. Just collapse this. I'll use lorem ipsum, and then it's just going to put a bunch of gibberish here just to help us with content, that's all. Now, if I go back to the page and I reload, yes, the image is overwhelming, but also I have my content here. So by default, the browser knows what to do when it encounters these elements like H1. You see how differently it has formatted this, okay? So, but then this is what it gives me out of the box. Then with CSS, I can now have more control over these elements and display them properly. So very quickly, let me just pull that in and get us, we're out of time. So inside of CSS, just going to create a new file, and I'll call it, let's say styles, my CSS styles.css. Okay, once I put the right file extension, it already knows what this is. So I would, for instance, when I go into my index.html, right, I need to target these elements. And that's what I was talking about, the DOM, when I was mentioning JavaScript. So these are document objects, okay? And then with this element, how do I target this element? I'll use a class, for instance. Okay, so in CSS, this was called a class, and then I would call this my wrapper, for instance. This is my wrapper element. This is the element that holds everything together. And then this is just going to be a photo element. And then this part would be my content, for instance. Okay, these are not the conventional ways of naming this, just to help you understand. So for now, I would click to load this up and then collapse this. So I could show you very quickly how this is done. All right, so I have a wrapper. So because I called it wrapper, rather, because I called wrapper a class, I have to prefix this wrapper with a period. Dot wrapper makes the browser know that this is a class. So very importantly, I need to put curly braces to tell that this class has some definitions. Now I'm going to define here a width for my wrapper element. Now I'll call it, let's say, 800, for instance, pixels. So we'll be talking about this. Why are we using pixels? All right. This is not the time, but I'll talk about this. And then maybe use a height, but the height now is going to be tricky. So I'll just put auto and I'll explain it if there's time, really. Okay, so let's just see what we have even done. Like, what is this about? Let me set a background color of gray. Okay, I'll just put a basic gray, or just F8, F8, F8. Please don't be intimidated by this right now. It's just because it's a demonstration. You'd understand exactly what I'm doing as we go on. So by just doing this, if I reload the page, nothing happens. Great. The reason is, in my HTML file, I need to tell it that I have an asset. I have an asset called CSS, right? And I needed to use that. So in the head section, not in the body, in the head section, I put a link. I say, link me to that asset. And the type of relationship this file would have with that asset is a style sheet. Rel means relationship. Hyperreference means, how do I get this file? How do I get this? How do I link to this file? So if, because we're out of time, I would have asked you to help me to navigate to this particular file. But you see that because we're accessing it from index, I have to go first through assets. Assets, it's the gateway to that file. And I have to go into the CSS directory and then pick up style.css. So when I do this now, with this wrapper element, wrapper class applied to this div element, I can now reload the page and expect that to take effect. Now, if it has not taken effect, let me just make sure I've saved. All right. Again, that is not enough. What I need to do is tame this image. because it's too large. So that's what's making us not see anything. Okay, so what's the class to this image? It's called photo. So I go to my CSS file, and then I say there is a class named photo. So this is a second declaration now. So I precede it with a period and put photo, wrap it around with curly braces, and then I'd say there is an image in photo img, for instance, or you know what? Let me define that differently here. Photo img, and that photo should have a width of 100%. Now, I'm going to define something inside here that will set the pace. Now we're using 800 pixels. So I want half of that space to be for the image. So if half of the entire wrapper is for the image, what would the value of the width be? Can you help us real quick? What would the value of the width be if it's half of the wrapper? Yeah, okay. Let me just go ahead because of time. So that would be 400 pixels. And I would like to float it to the left. I would explain all of this, but just because of time. And then by doing that and setting this at 100%, it means that the image that is inside this element called photo, a div that has a class applied to as photo, that image inside it should assume 100% width of the parent, which is this photo. So the 100% width means that it would inherit 400 pixels. All right. So let's see if that takes effect. So you can see now that this image has crashed down to 400 pixels. Now, if I right click on it, if I go to inspect, you'd see, you would see the image size. Or I think it's because of my screen is you can't see now. Otherwise, it should show you the dimension of this image now at 400 pixels, right? So by floating it left means that take the image to the left of the content, the overall content, and see now it's on the left, and this is on the right. So very quickly, I would also deal with the other part of the content, which is this content, right? Sorry, I'm rounding off now. So because it's a class, I set a period to it, and then I say content, and then put the curly braces to set the block. And I would say also the width should be, let's say 390. Okay, I'll tell you why. 390 pixels. Why? Because I want to set a margin to the left of 10 pixels. So the remaining from 400 is 10 pixels if I give this 390. So what is this going to do is it's going to push this content away from the image by 10 pixels. It's a small margin. So once I do that, I would also say this should float right. So that is clearly defined. And when I reload, you see that takes effect. It puts a 10 pixel margin. Just so you notice it was on the edge before, but now it has. So what am I saying? All of this is just helping us control the content on the web page. Now I'm not talking about colors anymore. I mean, like it's a whole lot that's coming into this, but it's just to give you a heads up with how to tame some of this content on your web page and make it look great, just like any other one that you celebrate. All right. So, sir, please permit me to quickly brisk through. I'm not going to demonstrate anything here, just going to quickly brisk through the web development so that you know what is coming. Okay, so we're going to be building web applications with React and Laravel PHP. That's the development language that we have chosen. Of course, after this, you could now delve into other programming languages. And I tell you, it's going to be easier to learn those languages because we have set the foundation from this. So it's like, for me, I know quite a lot of languages, not because I'm a genius, as it were, but because they all share the same fundamentals. They share the same concepts. Okay, so it's easy to learn a new language. All right, so some of the things that we're going to be touching through would be PHP, Laravel, MySQL, WAMP server, Linux, Next.js, React. Okay, talk about APIs. We'll be using Slack to collaborate, GitHub, of course, to for versioning, and then Git also is for subversioning, and then Vite. Vite would help us to bundle our scripts very quickly and make our site fast. Okay, so very quickly, we have introduction to backend. This is where we understand the concepts of backend, and then we'll explain a lot about it. Then the basics of server-side programming. Okay, so would be using a server-side scripting language like PHP. Okay, it's argued that PHP is not a programming language, even if it adopts all the programming language techniques and technology, but essentially it's built for the web page. Okay, so would be using PHP, Node.js. Yes, we'll be talking about Node.js, but maybe not Python and Ruby. We'll just talk about those as other programming languages. And then how to set up our environments. We'll be looking at that. And then database is very important. I'll be introducing you into database management systems, even up to normalization. Those are big topics in database, but of course it's part of this. And then we'll look at API development. How do we develop API and how do we consume other people's API? Okay. And then authentication and authorization, very important. Okay, how do we shield our website from unauthorized access? And then that's where security comes in. And then we'll talk about security, cross-site request forgery, cross-site scripting. Those are some of the things people do behind the scene to attack us. Okay, how do we shield ourselves against that? And then server-side frameworks, we'll be picking up Laravel. It's a framework that is built on PHP. Okay, there's also the Node.js Express, and which we'll just talk about it, but we're going to be using Node. Interestingly, we'll be using Node while we're using Laravel, React, and Next.js. Okay, and then we'll look at how to build applications using that backend framework, especially Laravel. And we'll touch a concept, very important concept of model view controller. Okay, so that's what sets the difference between other object-oriented programming languages. The model view controller, very modular, and we'll talk about that. And we'll delve deeper into React. You know, we would have started React from the front end, but now we're looking deeper.
We can't hear you anymore. I think your network is telling you that time up. I don't know whether you can hear me. Before he comes back, please, if you have any question, you can raise your hand. Our time is fast spent already, and he has dropped off. Hello, hello, Phil, are you there? No. You're on mute. If you're talking, you're on mute. Hello, Phil. If you are talking, you're on mute.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. Okay. So, like I said, I think I was here real time. Cool. All right, handling forms and user inputs was where I stopped. And then how do we handle that? Okay, because when you are rendering, when you're pushing content to the public, it's fine. Okay, you can go to bed and have a nice sleep. But then when you are receiving input from users, you need to be nervous. Okay, so we'll be looking at how to handle those requests and then tame any attack coming from our forms. And then user authentication, we'll be bringing it all over to Laravel, and we're looking at real-time functionalities using Laravel Echo Pusher, where you would something happens, you push notifications to everyone that is online at the same time, you know. So that's what we're going to be looking at as we go deeper into web development. Then file uploads. How do you handle file uploads, images, files, even like PDF, okay, and things like that? Would look at all that. And then deployment, very important wrapping up section of this program. Deployment, how do you deploy on a production server? What are your choices, or what are the options? And then how do you make those choices? Okay, so looking at how to deploy Laravel and Next.js. And yeah, the final part, which is the project. Now, I tell you what, the projects would not be something that will come at the end. This will be project-based learning. So as we hit the ground running with the concepts, the terminologies, the principles, almost immediately we're on with projects. And then the other parts that we're learning is applying to those projects. Okay, so most of the projects that we've learned from the front end, we'll be consolidating it here. That's why you're seeing a few of this here. All right, so thank you for listening. I appreciate the time. I took too much time. I know that, I apologize, but that's just to show you what's coming, and it's a lot of it, it's a load of it. So with the permission of the boss, you'll be getting this, not this slide, but 2 documents that would contain details of the outline for the front end and then the back end. Thank you once again. My name is Theophilus Aika, and I feel privileged to be on this side of the conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you too. Really appreciate that. Yeah. That's a mini training.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for that. So if you have any question, please, you can start to raise your hand, and I'll be calling you one by one. I know our time is spent, but if you have any questions, again, why you try to raise your hand. The training will be starting on the 30th of this month, and it will run 3 times a week. That will be Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. UK time. The duration of the program is for 4 months, and and as I said earlier on as well, for the course starting on the 30th, we only have 9 spots left. The cost once again is £999, but we are giving 50% discount for those who are going to be registering. And also, you can start with half payment, and the other half can be paid within 6 to 8 weeks. So there's flexibility in making payment as well. For any enrollment, because of our time again, or any discussion after this call, you can reach me on the WhatsApp number on your screen. For anything at all, you can save it and you can take a screenshot as well. That'll be the best number to reach me on. Prince, you raise your hand. What's the question? Hello, Prince. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good evening. Yes.
I need to say a big thank you to Theophilus. It was really a great session, and it was not boring. And also, my question is like to Theophilus, like when he's teaching, do we have to code along with him, or just, I don't know, what is the solution? Like, do we have to code along with him? or we just need to just take notes? And so the second question is, where do we, during our learning, is it through Zoom? Are we going to get our learning through Zoom here, or we have any other platform we are going to use during the course? Thank you.
All right, I can answer the second question. So the second question regarding the learning platform, it will be a live session on Zoom, just the way we are having the session now. And every session will be recorded as well. So you can go back to the recording after the class and watch it and do everything. You have access, you have access to our LMS platform where you can easily have access to the recording. And for the first question, Theophilus, if you want to answer that regarding what will be the mode of the, are you expecting them to code as you are coding or just watch you and do it and replicate the same thing later on? Hello, Theo, are you talking? If you are talking, we cannot hear you though. Hello, Theo, are you there? I think probably his network again. All right. While we wait for him to come back, any other question from anyone? Any other question at all from anyone? Any clarification that you want to make? Any enrollment information that you want? Anything? To answer the first question, I just want to give it a go. Because I used to be a facilitator. I used to teach software automation before as well, which involves coding as well. Why I'm coding, I think the best bet that I tell my students is just to watch because they have the recording to go back to. But if you understand how I'm doing it, you'll be able to understand the video when you go back to the video and watch the video. So my approach might be different from Phil, is just watch me, understand what I'm doing, and then you can go back to the recording and try to replicate, because now you have the understanding, you can try to replicate it. That would be my own approach if I'm the one facilitating. All right. I think he's having issue with the audio. Any other question from anyone, please? Our time is fast spent. So again, the start date will be on the 30th of this month. If you don't want to raise your hand, you can drop your question on the chat as well. If that would be better. If not, you can just raise your hand and ask your question. So start date 30th of this month. Still have 9 spots left. You can still take advantage of the 50% discount. And enroll and let's walk the walk together. You can't go wrong. There's no way you can go wrong. You can never go wrong, because we are there to support, to assist, and to guide, so you cannot go wrong. And with the hope that at the end of the day, when you put in the effort, you're going to get something at the end of the tunnel, whether a remote job, a permanent job, a freelance job, you put yourself in that position to get something out of it. All right. I think there's no other question from anyone. Our time is fast spent. I'd like to thank everyone for staying till now. And hopefully I'm going to see some of you on the journey. For any inquiry, please message me on the number on your screen. Till then, please stay safe and have a good night rest. Thanks. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.